I've been shooting like every day. So,
Wow. So you don't have to share, I think, when we do this. So yeah, just I don't think we'll totally have time for it on Thursday, but maybe next week. I don't know what lecture session next Thursday. Little mini photo night discussion. Is there at the end. How are we doing, Sarah? You awake yet? You're on your phone, aren't you?
pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have
Just noticed that.
So I have to.
Okay. I'll definitely take that into account when we do our sessions.
My signal's a little weird.
Michael also is on his phone. Audio okay on your end?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it works better than my computer.
Really? Interesting to know. We for the board meeting in Reston, Virginia, and yeah, it was pretty horrible for the folks that were trying to phone in. So this is a weekend. What's before we start, we're going to do the critiques, and then we're going to talk about something I did last weekend, and I'm going to share the task with you and to kind of see where you land on it. I judged a video. I judged a regional press association's category for the Society of Professional Journalists, and I was the video judge. And I judged not a bunch of videos, maybe just only 6 of them. So I've actually, if you've noticed, if you're watching Canvas with any regularity, if so, that would make one of us. I'm kidding. I actually do. I put this on there for you. I'll talk about this first, and then we'll do a critique, and then talk about what's coming up on Thursday. So, assignment on Canvas for you. It's in the week 12. I guess this is week 12 module. And here, actually, let me do a little screen share here. Puppy, well, say hi to the class. Say hi to the class. Actually, you can't see that because I just started screen share.
Doc, your mic is off.
Yeah, I just turned it back on. Yep. There must be a quick key that I'm accidentally hitting when I go between screen share and not screen share. So I apologize for that. Yeah, week 12, between 11 and 13, I believe. So, all right, so I've got this. It all this is a survey, okay? So as you can see, I judged the visual craft achievement category. SPJ of Western Pennsylvania, otherwise known as Pittsburgh. And I'm just going to ask you to kind of step through each of these videos. They tend to range from 1 to 3 minutes. So not a ton of time. These aren't like long form videos. These are just kind of, I don't know, kind of either daily or maybe a future weekend video or something. I'd like you to go and preview. All right, so yeah, you can go to each of these and click on this. You go to the video. If you run into a paywall, let me know and I can give you a recipe for that, but I think none of these are blocked. Same when I viewed them. So rate each of these and give it a number, 1 through 10. 0 or 11. So 1 through 10, just give it a number. And then just like you do in class, when you're doing critiques, just or 2 sentences, a very brief summation in critical analysis. You say, this video, I always like for you to say more than I like this video, say why you like this video. Discuss the rhetoric of the the narrative. Okay, so yeah, just 1 or 2 sentences in each of these. So all I'm doing is asking you to watch a video, just a couple minutes. And we're going to talk results and your what's judging. Those of you who watch any coaching, you're going to know that it's subjective as all hell. So I'll be surprised if we completely agreed on everything. But it's always interesting to hear these discussions, especially among multiple judges. This time, and some of you have talked about how interesting it is, and it is interesting and important and informative to watch a judging happen. Yeah, this one I got to fix. It's 5 points. That's weird. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So it's interesting to watch a judging happen. It's also interesting when you it's just going to be a way to kind of about what is successful, what needs improvement, and what do you think works and what do you think doesn't. So yeah, and then what we're going to do on Thursday is just spend a few minutes kind of going around. Hopefully by then, absolutely by then, please by then, finish this thing. Again, we're going to adjourn a little bit early today and you'll have time to work on it during this time slot. If you can, I'd recommend it, but certainly by Thursday, finish this up. I will spit out the numbers and share with you all the feedback and we'll talk about it and I'll show you ratings. And my rate came out, what came out for it's a 3 honor. 3 honorable mention. Don't ask. Every contest is different and best as I can tell, very idiosyncratic. So anyway, so that's the plan. That's part of the plan for Thursday. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to produce a I can't remember what was assigned for reading for Thursday. I'm going to ask you to view the interview between Jana and I and come up with 10 questions for Jana. So, all right, let's make it 5 questions. Actually, yeah, I'll do that because I haven't posted it yet. But yeah, 5 questions for Jana because she's only going to have maybe about 20, maybe 25 minutes with us. And I want to take more with her because, again, she's pretty amazing. So that's the plan for Thursday. Is anybody freaking out? Consent?
So
Oh, no.
you want both the video assignment and the questions due by Thursday, correct?
And I think for the questions, it really sucks when we have a speaker and like nobody says anything, frankly. I'd like to avoid that. So that's why I do this. I'm not going to give you all 10 questions like I usually do. If you can come up with 5 questions, and you're going to have questions after you watch this video, because again, she's a really amazing photojournalist. These are 1 to 3 minute videos. You're going to give it a number and then write a couple of sentences for each. Anything you write is going to get you points if it resembles, English and, some sort of thinking. So, and probably I'm flexible on that as well. So, yeah, just 5 questions. And you know what? I'm going to go and 5 questions can be due by midnight Thursday, which means you can literally write them after. Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna. How do you feel about questions? I need you guys to talk.
Is this 5? Sorry, is this 5 questions per video?
For
Speaker, I'm pretty sure.
For the speaker, yes, yeah, absolutely for the speaker.
And that's
I'm
fine with it. I was just curious if you wanted it due Friday or Thursday or not.
Yeah, I'd like to have
assignments sound fine.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, I don't think I'm killing you with this because it's just again it's. I think you can knock this out in like 30 minutes probably, or less. This one here, and then the video with her. Let me just show it to you real fast. Still see my screen. There's Kyle. Let's open up another video real fast. Downloads is what we want. So let's see. With QuickTime. So I mean, this is the video, and it's pretty good. I have not. Usually, I trim it, recompress it, and put it on YouTube. I haven't done that yet because I did this like yes last night actually. But it's she's got really amazing work, and see it. WebEx is horrible if you try to rebroadcast video through it. But I'm going to have this on YouTube actually an hour after we hang up here. All I need to do is just put a title on the front, recompress it, upload it to YouTube, and you'll be good to go. So let's get out of this. So that's the plan. If you guys, it'll make our time on Thursday really productive, is what matters. If you're good, it sounds like you are. Okay. All right. Zelda, you good with that? Yep, she's good with that. Okay. So she's right with you. All right. So let's we have one more critique to do, and that is Kyle. Ready for this? Radio voice. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yes.
All right. So Kyle Crawford, or as his friends call him, Kyle. Screen share again. Myself. Nope. And so, Kyle, tell me about the photo column
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So for this photo column, I really wanted to follow sports throughout the season, specifically within the MAC League and following Ball State and what they were up to. Originally, it was going to be only basketball, so both men's and women's, and I was going to follow them all the way to the MAC tournament. But unfortunately, COVID-19 happened, and a lot of the planning I had fell through for the actual tournament. So actually getting those photographs was impossible because of the travel restrictions. And then in addition, a lot of the scheduling just kind of fell through when I tried to go through and see what the story was after that was delayed, mainly because of just everything hitting us personally. So with this, I ended up going back and kind of looking at some of the highlights from this season and creating my photo column around that, and then expanding it from just basketball to include some of the other sports. But that's where I ended up taking this. A lot of the photo columns go into the story of each individual game, as well as what happened.
Well, you know what I think, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. We're all colleagues here. What do y'all think? Let's go back to your words.
I think that all of your pictures are incredibly crisp and like just perfectly executed. So if you're not officially a sports photographer, you definitely should be. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I think there's a couple of them where, like the first one and the last one, where there's kind of injuries that may have been like a subcategory that you could have followed and like saw if there was any other injuries throughout all of these games and kind of captured those, because no one usually pays attention to that. So that might be a kind of interesting topic to go with outside of it, I guess. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good
Nice
point.
job. Very nice job.
Yeah, Kyle, you actually identify yourself as you would probably identify as, if not exclusively sports photographer, you're very comfortable with sports.
Yeah, I would say if there's a professional level, I would say sports would be my specialty. So.
And as I've talked about frequently in classes, recently in intro, like last week, yeah, sports, a proficiency in sports photography sets you up for excellence in every other sector of photography. I would say, even in portraits, those of you who kind of envision going into maybe the more commercial end, or maybe shooting moment-driven images, as Candace Cusick will tell you. Candace Skyped in. She likes Google Hangouts, but I mean, she teleconferenced in last year to the missions class, and she literally gives. They're kind of pricey, but I would recommend them. She's a wedding photojournalist, and she shoots in the photojournalistic tradition, and as she says, looks for moment-driven pictures. And again, this is kind of imported from her life working for the Chicago Tribune. But she has kind of brought all these skills the skill set into her commercial work. And indeed, even the portraits are very, very moment driven. We see that with Reagan Allen, who's a recent Ball State graduate, and also early on kind of pronounced herself as a very commercially inclined, not a traditional journalist in any sense of the word. However, again, her images are highly moment driven. So this is something that I think is a really useful niche. Really, no matter certainly if you're going to specialize in sports, maybe like Michael. Michael is a agency photographer, freelancer that works think he lives in Kokomo. He's not far from campus, but he was a campus photographer for a couple of years, actually. Left the job maybe 2 years ago to go 100% freelancing. So he works for Getty, and he shoots pretty much all sports, kind of like AJ Mass does. He's shooting all sports and maybe not all sports, entertainment work. So sport entertainment, like pretty much specifically, but not exclusively. He also, again, he's another one of these guys that does a lot of different things, as you'll hear when she gets to on Thursday, or whenever you listen to this video, this that we did last night. Yeah, she does a lot of different things. And actually, I'll also say we talked a little bit about specialization, generalization. Jana, probably not unlike myself, likes to do a lot of different things. She's a generalist and really puts herself out there as a generalist. She says being a generalist really saved her, like during this current time right now. The only assignments that she isn't getting any assignments as a freelancer. Every freelancer, and I know that you know a few of these people out in the field now, every freelancer I know is kind of struggling at this time. And the only assignments that she is getting are from the San Francisco Chronicle, who, like all of us in journalism, are incredibly busy and ridiculously now understaffed the economic because of the marketplace and the economic conditions within journalism itself, within the profession. So she's glad to have that money coming in. So kind of a word, but throwing out again a word about there's advantages and disadvantages to both, and you just have to really through those trade-offs. I went in about 17 different directions. The great work that Kyle has put out here. Does anybody want to say anything else to Kyle about this stuff?
I'm super glad that you decided to not just shoot basketball, because I think it covers a broader range of emotions, because there's emotions that run through every sport, and you can see that in sport photography, but I think you hit on things that you probably wouldn't have gotten from just basketball, and it kind of brings the whole package together in a way that it wouldn't have with just basketball shots. So I really like that.
I think photograph volleyball. And this is one of the better volleyball pictures I've seen students, we'll say, as a professional, they're part of 3.5 decades. Volleyball is really hard to photograph. Really good jubilation pictures, and you can kind of concentrate on those, and those will give you storytelling pictures. And the other option is this option here, which is a really good version of that. You know how to shoot it. Is that per chance with the 300-2.8? Look at the metadata.
That was with the 7200 on a 7D, so essentially 300.
Okay, yeah, sure. And you're shooting pretty much wide open there. Yeah, that's what you got to do. That's the approach with that. So yeah, you're showing a lot of versatility here. You men's sports, women's sports, men's hoop and women's hoop, verticals and horizontals, which I always to the ring. Did you photograph that from the ring, or was that just from an elevated? That looks like from the ring.
Yeah, that's from the ring. So one of the days I arranged to go up with Bobby, and it was just an experiment. And yeah, this was probably one of my favorite photos I got from it. So
Sure,
definitely not recommend it if you have any fear of heights. It's pretty crazy up there.
tell me. Yeah, no, I used to. I didn't ever do that in Norfolk. Well, actually, I've been in the ring in Scope Arena a couple of times for hockey games. I didn't get much. The action didn't present itself. I did pretty well with it in San Antonio shooting the Spurs. Part of the So it was a grid that you can kind of see through it. It was easily load bearing. I felt pretty safe. I held on to the rails like a mother. I I really held on tight, just
Yeah.
because, yeah, going up for that kind of stuff. But I heard horror stories of time. I think a lens hood from a ABC cameraman camera shaved off a woman's
Yeah.
ear, and I think ABC
Uh,
ABC still paying for that. So you're very mindful of where you are. You duct tape everything like you've never duct taped anything before. You don't have anything dangling from you or any extra cameras or any extra anything. You're very mindful of where you are and the risks involved. Usually you have to sign about 17 waivers to go up there that assume all damages and liability.
yeah.
Scare you out of your mortal wits before going up. Certainly that environment will. It's nice and warm up there, though. That's the other thing. Try not to sweat on people. Anyway, all right, that's gross. I'm sorry, Solomon.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice work.
Okay. And then also as a note for you, I've updated the photos of individual captions as well. So that's on box now.
Oh, for that captions. I'm not going to kill anybody on captions. I will nag you though, all of you. You know that. Anyway, so nothing personal. I'm just a pain in the ass. Anything else before we move on?
Yeah,
Okay.
mine are in box too.
Mine. That's Michaela.
Yes.
Okay. One moment. It's going to take some clicking and loading and stuff. Stop sharing. All right. So if you would submit, store whatever weird thing Canvas, store those surveys, and I'll get that stuff graded. I am trying to catch up on grading. Before we adjourn today, I'll show you what I have been working on that is slow everything, but I think you'll find it really interesting. But before we wait, no, we can't do that because we haven't done Michaela's yet. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you haven't stored yet, you might have that thing again, because I did. So you were able to open up, do multiple attempts. Actually, hold on just a second. Okay. Right. So let's go ahead. Michaela, I'm still downloading your stuff. So, word to the wise, and yeah, when you turn in stuff, it actually would help me to know that before I get to class, because it takes, it's not a one-click thing at all. All right, my download will begin shortly, it says. A little confounding, but all right, I got it in here. Let me, here it goes. That was easy. All right, so Halo.
This is a former NFL player. His name is.
A little bit, I'm sorry. Tony Walker?
Oh, yeah, his name is Tony Walker. He used to play for the Indianapolis Colts back in the 90s. And now he just does music full time. So I kind of just covered like what the life of him is like as a retired NFL football player.
How'd you get in contact with someone like this?
He actually used to know my father a long time ago, like before I was born. And so I asked if he still had like connections with him, and so I reached out to him and he thought it was perfectly fine. I just like over spring break, I probably met with him 4 or 5 different times at the different places and just photographed him while he was just doing whatever he does.
That's
I
awesome.
walked
These are
in.
really, really good.
Thank you. I walked into his house and he's got like a grand piano and 2 keyboards and there's mics everywhere and a drum set and guitars and I was just like, what? Like half of his living room was a couch and the other half was just like this entire setup. It was really crazy.
Not only are these like really wonderful pictures and like the composition's really good, the color's good, everything is nice and clear, but I really like the variety of shots that you got. You definitely worked it and got different angles, and I really like that.
I think what really helped. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Michaela.
I was gonna say I think one of the things that really helped with like me being able to do all the variety is because he used to be in the spotlight. He kind of just didn't even act like I was there, which was really great because I didn't want him to pose or do nothing. He just did what he did and ignored that I was there.
I was just gonna say the only thing that I would critique is just watch your editing. Like a couple of these get really hot in some places, so maybe just taking down the highlights on those and maybe like that first one in particular, adding a little bit of warmth into there and taking down the highlights would have helped. But like Brittany said, I think your composition is really strong. Especially that photo of him playing the piano and then the photo, I'm assuming that was him as an NFL player on the, with the picture like posted up next to it. I think that composition is really strong and they all kind of tell their own story, which is really nice.
Thank you.
Make sure I'm not. Yeah. So I think these let me actually go back to screen sharing for a minute. Yeah, I think these really do tell a story. I do agree there. Your editing is a little hot, a little, and maybe that's just the nature of where you're shooting and how you're shooting it. But it seems like some of the flesh tones are kind of, I don't know if you can see my cursor. You can maybe go into, if you're in Photoshop, you can go into curves, bring those midtones down by like a zone or so, by maybe half a stop. And I think it would still be great, especially here. It's a little bit too hot. So I think just maybe crafting a little bit more in post-production edits would help. Also, something I see as I kind of go around the room sometimes and check on your, not check on, but kind of look at your working. A lot of you guys like to work with your brightness turned down a little bit, and I don't know if that comes out in your editing or not. So if you have like a preference or a pattern that turns your brightness down, make sure that you're really consistent about just using the screen in the edits that you're making, because especially if you're trying to edit through maybe a less bright version of your image, that could make a difference. If there are calibration issues with your monitors, sometimes we see that. I'll just say Terrence Lightning, I think from his freshman to partially through his junior year, all of his pictures look consistently too blue. As much as until I was blue in the face, I was literally and figuratively, I would try to talk him into recalibrating. And I don't know if it was, but sometimes, we will see kind of these idiosyncratic issues with monitors. So, that may be a thing. Way to check it is just maybe put something on Instagram and look at it on your desktop with a phone and just see if there's any differences. If you're seeing differences in your work between the ways presented, like the projection's not always a really great way to judge your picture. Ways presented in class, or if it's seen in other screens or other modes of viewing, maybe check your calibration. And everyone has this problem. We had the problem with calibration. And my joke was that, if all of our monitors were calibrated, maybe at least one of them would be correct. But yeah, that's not the way to go. It's just really good work. It's a great find. It's I would call it a run if that wouldn't be inappropriate for a sport. I'll say that anyway, because that's how I roll. Oh yeah, what we haven't done? We haven't looked at the words. Anybody going to sleep yet? So the copy box, these copy box, you've kind of written almost kind of feels like a caption. So these aren't captions; these are like little mini stories. This looks like kind of a caption flavor, if there's such a thing. You can go a little longer with these, and many photographers do. I kind of gave you those limits and word counts as kind of a guide, but
What does that sound?
I'm babysitting and my niece
like,
is like eating her cereal right next to my computer.
Oh, it sounds like a cat box or something.
No, she's scraping her bowl.
All right. So yeah, I think this is awesome. We're looking at some ways it may a notch, but it's pretty high notch. So you should feel good about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I hope that This didn't wipe out any data from the surveys, but go ahead and close your surveys and finish that if you would. I'll go ahead and get these things graded. And that's kind of it. As we wrap up today, I'm going to try to get us wrapped up a few. I'm going to show you some of the research. I was talking with Jana about it. And I talked to some of you in the class, but this thing is getting really close to being ready to produce. So this is a training needs assessment for photo editors. And every long form photographer out and most freelancers have to deal with photo editors at a certain point. So this is a type of that's never been done before. And it does the pinnacle of performance. What is ultimate the photo editor like, and how do you train for that? Obviously, as a professor who teaches a photo editing seminar, most of you have had, that's a very big concern of mine. And I, as a better than average photo editor, when I was doing the work, it's something I thought about a lot. How do I keep on top of my game? What's important in this? So, so we did 30 interviews. We did 30 interviews, and my research partner accidentally deleted an interview. So we actually only have 29. One of these is missing. So, yeah, so 30 interviews, and each of these are, pretty important, pretty major photo editors. They're at least an hour each of them. A few of them went 2 hours. And each of these interviews was transcribed from a recording, coded through, and we talk, we code parts of the interview where they talk about coaching. Okay, so this is just for subject one. Someone actually, from the region, from the area, who's come to talk to us a couple of times. Here he's talking about coaching, training gaps. What, how do photo editors get trained? Ethical principles, fairness, being calm. What's calm, being patient. And again, more discussion of ethics, very important in photo editing. A very critical part of the audience needs. Metrics. Metrics are important. Audience needs and engagement, or more about training gaps. Changing skill sets in photo editors. The job's a lot different than it used to be. And ultimately, you get a list of and what's a big part of the. Let's sort this by names. So I asked them a number of questions. My research partner and I. 5 words or phrases that describes a great photo editor: communicator, manager, journalist. Empathetic is in there. I actually moved it into attitudes, and we break the job down into knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Specific attitudes, and the reason I'm showing this to you, because this also, I think, visual journalists or anyone doing visual journalism or visual communication, being adaptive, mentally flexible. Being an advocate, you may have heard me talk about that once or twice or 200 times. Being an advocate, being able to articulate. In this case, these photojournalists, these photo editors are being advocates for their photographers. And not photo editor, former supervisor, and team leader. I would say that's probably the most important part of the job, is being an advocate for the people who work for you or with you. Being able to articulate the value of a picture in photography and photojournalists, being a visual translator, fighting for visuals, being again, being calm and patient. People had a lot of to say about that. Being collaborative, as you know, that's a big part of it. Humility, being knowledgeable, not just about photography and photo editing and photojournalism, but just about the world. Being emotionally intelligent. So these are all, and again, each of these, being a good listener. People had, a lot to say. We had, so if you go sort this by the number of people who've mentioned these factors, we had more than half of the people talk about being a motivator. We had more than half talking about being conscientious. More than half talked about confidence in the job. And again, these are, I would suggest these are really important, not only to photo editors or visual editors, anybody doing the job of a photojournalist. Being calm and patient. Those of you that want to get into photo editing down the road, these are important findings. Being knowledgeable, emotional, intelligent. Anyway, and then knowledge, the knowledge of a photo editor. What knowledge areas are important? Where do you get that knowledge? So SOPs, the details of the job, technical knowledge, editing for platform, which means editing for print or online, staying up on the details of the job, following the trends, being a visual expert, being knowledgeable about visuals. Again, being a photographer, knowing photography, knowing photojournalism. This came up a lot. 17 mentions, knowing the history of photography, which is kind of the value of this class. This winds up being really important, knowing what happened before to apply it to what's happening currently. Social intelligence, we talked a lot about that in photo editing last year. Interpersonal communications, being a good people person, understanding workplace politics cannot be overestimated. Having really good communication skills and so-called soft skills. I have, this is what everybody asks about, actually. So this is news you can use. I get a lot of calls about newly graduated alumni, people who are on the market. I'm on a lot of people's resumes and reference lists. And by the way, if I'm not on your reference list, you should put me on there. The only thing they ever want to know, I don't know, that may be hyperbole, but literally sometimes this is the only question they ask. Can this graduate actually work with people? Can they, can you throw them a curveball and they'll be able to problem solve? This kind of want to know about when they call me. And again, of course, each of these is just, again, a lot of interview data from the participants. So ethics, that's important. Knowing journalism, knowing the business, being familiarity with your own product, your publication, or your organization, whether it's a publication or print journalism, or whether it's an NGO, or I think also strategic communication, marketing. Those of you who are not looking at journalism, but want to get into some sort of marketing role, stratcom of any kind, you just have to be familiar with your organization and your own content and the audience, actually. So this goes on and on. It is super. I will say one last thing, and Jana talks about it a little bit in the interview that you're about to see sometime soon. Being a well-rounded person. That winds up being really important. I'm trying to figure that's under knowledge, I think. Let's see. If I can find it really quickly. I think I categorized that under knowledge, social intelligence, leadership management, comprehensive knowledge. All right, that's what we're looking for. Life experience beyond photography. 4 people mentioned that. Global general knowledge, but yeah, life experience beyond photography. To me, that was really interesting. Well, at least a couple of people mentioned that in a couple of different places in all these interviews. And Jana talks about that a little bit in her interview as well. So, you know, it's still, those of you that actually have, you know, I know Katie and Becca, you both of you are pretty good rock climbers and you like the outdoors a lot. Kyle, I know you like sailing. So yeah, having a life outside, a well-rounded life and integrated life beyond just photojournalism is important. So that's, you know, that's worth talking about. Anyway, so that's the research that I've been working on, and we are close to hitting send on a manuscript on that. So I like to show you what I'm working on. Anyway, so before we adjourn, you guys doing okay?
Yep.
Ready to call it a day? Okay. So I'll put that video out there from the interview last night. That should be up within 30 minutes. As soon as I click off here, I'm going to load that onto YouTube and get that produced for you. You can go ahead and use you know, any time remaining to just try to get through some of those videos, and let me know if you have any questions. We'll have a really good talk on Thursday.
Yep. Hey, Martin. So that interview you're posting, is that what we do the 5 questions over?
You can, you know,